Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we, a business owner and an artist, discuss the business of art and the art of business. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made, and Ross is not here today, but he's our co-host and our creative director at Epic Made, and he'll be back soon. But so today it's just me and our wonderful guests. But past guests here include Marcy Selsberg of Blah Blah Blah, Joe Weaver of OceanTea.com, and Rebecca Blake of the Graphic Artists Guild. We're forever grateful for the supporters of our podcast. As always, we are looking for more sponsors. So if you're interested in being a part of this community, let me know. And this podcast would not be possible without the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a collaborative of expert artists and animators who help brands tell powerful and engaging stories. We've demonstrated our expertise in visual storytelling, fantasy pop culture, and detailed world building in collaboration with some of the biggest entertainment brands on planet Earth, including Sci-Fi, Nickelodeon, and TNT. Visit getepicmade.com and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign. All right, so with us today, we have Linda Yuan. Linda has worked in a variety of high-growth tech startups, ranging from starting her own companies to early and growth stage startups and IPO stage companies. Prior to tech, she worked in finance as an investment banker and a venture capitalist. Today, she is now the co-founder of Madio, a no-code multiplayer game maker that empowers creators to make their own communities. Thanks for coming out, Linda. So glad to have you.
Thanks, Carl. Great to be here.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to chat with you. I know we've chatted a little bit before. Madio is so cool. I can't wait to let our audience know more about that and some of the community that you're building and the communities within that community. All of that's just really cool, and I just think that more people should know about it. So that's why we invited you on the show.
Yeah.
So before we get into the meat of the conversation, I wanted to go ahead and ask you a couple quick hitters, let our audience get to know you a little bit. So how long have you been doing this and what brought you to your industry?
Yeah, so I've been working on Madio with my co-founder since January last year, so January 2022. In terms of what got me here, I mean, I've always been interested in games. I've always played games when I was a kid. I actually used to make games in like StarCraft, Warcraft.
Oh yeah.
The map making types of games. And yeah, and was always just really into it, but never really thought I could make a career out of it. So I actually tried making my own gaming startup a couple years ago. It was a platform that helped to connect teams, esport teams, with talent, up and coming talent. I built that for a little while, then kind of thought the timing wasn't right, didn't really make sense. And so kind of put that on the back burner. And then a couple of years ago, I met Jay. We started talking a little bit about just some of the things he'd been working on. We talked about Madio, and it just really seemed like it was the perfect fit for me as someone who loves playing games, who loves making games, and loves just empowering creators. Just really seemed like a really interesting platform, and we've just kept on building and growing since.
Sounds awesome. And I love that we are now in each other's ecosystem because all of that stuff just resonates with me. Super cool. Yeah. So what is top of mind in your industry right now?
Oh, man. A lot of things. I think one thing that, I'll talk about maybe more the gaming side and then kind of more interesting on some things on the Web3 side because I just had a talk in Web3 this morning. But on the gaming side, I think there's a couple pieces. Number one is getting people interested in making games, right? There's a lot of tools out there, and at least for maybe like my generation and older generations, knowing how to code was integral to making games.
Yep.
Nowadays, kids pretty much grow up understanding code, if not necessarily knowing how to code themselves. They generally know computers much better, know technology much better. And so a lot of them are using games as a way to teach themselves far more than I ever did as a kid, for sure, which is really interesting for us because we are a no-code platform, but it still is helpful to have some understanding of like, what does an if statement do? What does a loop do? How can that help me to build a better game?
Right.
So we've seen kids be able to actually teach themselves how to code by using games. So I think kind of bringing people in to making games is always one of the top things that we think about in gaming. Um, on the Web3 side of things, I still think one of the biggest problems with Web3 games is they aren't fun, honestly. Like you play
Yeah.
these games and a lot of the people or a lot of these creators have made games that maybe are focused too much on the Web3 side or focused too much on the blockchain side. And they kind of forget that the backbone of this is a game that needs to be fun.
Right.
So we still see kind of an issue where people are having, let's say, issues of building fun games that people actually want to play. And so, at least for us, we see this as an opportunity to say, hey, let's focus on making the game fun, and the Web3 side can just make it better.
Totally. Yeah, I've seen that a lot myself, and we've dabbled in some game making, as storytellers and just super
Yeah.
nerds ourselves our whole life, right? We definitely have on our list to finish some games. But yeah, I've seen that a lot of times where people are so focused on the NFT interlacing that they forget that that's just a feature. Like no one plays a game because there's Web3 technology in it. They're playing a game because it's fun and they're sacrificing their time that they're never going to get back. So they should be entertained in a way that is quality and not gimmicky. And a lot of times the Web3 part of it is very gimmicky related to like, oh, you can make money with this. And it's like,
Yeah,
not if the game sucks. No one wants your NFTs. Like, it's like it devalues the whole idea. So I'm with
exactly.
you.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the structure of things, right? It's you need to make a game fun because that's the reason why people come back, right?
Right.
You might have some people who are here like just to make money, but they have a very different mindset, right? They're like, I think of what was it, Diablo, the auction house when it was first introduced, and
Yep.
then just the entire like ecosystem just changed as soon as they added real cash, and it was just like, hold up, let's back up. This isn't the type of ecosystem we want for the auction house. So they
Totally.
really just went back to like, hey, like what is the reason why people want to come here? Once you have that, the demand starts coming anyways for those games because people are constantly coming back, and then you say, hey, you can have this special skin. Hey, you can have this special reward that's an NFT. Now all of a sudden, everything falls into place. You have demand for the NFT, you have ownership, you have everything that, really drives the engine for that
Totally.
Web3 stuff.
I mean, imagine like for a game like Fortnite, who has more licensing deals than any other franchise I've seen in the like. Maybe Lego has more than them. Like you're talking. They got DC and Marvel characters in the same game, right next to each other, killing each other. That happens nowhere else in planet Earth that I'm aware of. Imagine if all those skins are NFTs. Imagine the value to the player right now. No one believed that Epic Games could make a game that was entirely dependent on cosmetic items to generate revenue, and it's blown away everything. Nothing gets close. And so the idea of interlacing that value and transferring some of that, especially with royalties, right, into a blockchain, then they can have it all closed in their ecosystem. They don't even need to let it come out of their ecosystem. And it could get really wild. So
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody at Epic Games is thinking about that. If not, they should talk to me and you, and we should implement it for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or help lead the thought on that at least. All right,
Yeah.
cool. So tell me a project that you're most proud of.
Yeah. I mean, can I talk about Mario or is that going to be too?
Talk about whatever you want. Like Mario, you should be most proud of Mario. Like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, just maybe an introduction of Mario for anyone who's listening up. So Mario, again, we are a no code multiplayer game maker. So I emphasize the multiplayer because that really is where our focus is. We allow people to not just play like 3 or 4 person multiplayer games, but like hundreds of players. So it's massive multiplayer games. And when you think about the technology behind that, that's actually very complicated. There's a lot of, servers that need to go into that. There's a lot of like just taking the information of different players and saying like, hey, if I player A am here and player B is there, how do we ensure that like connectivity is there, that you see my movements and any interaction we have between us as players that is shown. And then without going too technical, then there's a lot of things on kind of the engine side of ensuring that there's smooth gameplay, whether it's about lag or reconnecting to a server or just, having all this data being ingested at one time and being able to keep track of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So really what we've done is we've taken that multiplayer experience and you can literally go on our website right now. You can use some templates and you can have a game up and running in seconds, like 10 seconds or less. Um, those games are Yeah. And I mean, what we've done was we've taken some very popular games and made different types of games like tower defense, racing games, certain platformers. So we have those templates available and we're always building out more. But we really are trying to focus on, again, just making it as easy as possible to get started and then being able to grow with the platform and say, hey, if I want to make something more complicated, I can always build those clicker, idle games, whatever. But I can also make an MMORPG, which we do have on our platform. You can make League of Legends, which a creator has made on our platform. You can
Wow.
make these really complicated. We have a Call of Duty clone on our platform. You can make these really complicated games, despite starting off on something maybe very simple when you maybe are just getting started, and then we kind of follow you through that process and help you to make more and more complicated games.
Really amazing. That and I think about like, in the late 90s and early 2000s, 99, I was playing an MMORPG on a dial-up modem. It took me 18 hours to patch and 5 hours to zone. And these are the
Yeah.
predecessors to like World of Warcraft. I was playing EverQuest, and it's like
Yeah.
they were doing that on dial-up, right? And now it's like someone can throw together something like that. I mean, more or less on your platform, really
Yeah.
easy. So my big question here before we get into the meat,
Yeah.
what's the best tower defense? Who's made the Artgul's tower defense from Warcraft 3 mods that is now on your platform? Because I need this in my life and I can't find it anywhere anymore. Like we all know Dota started in that atmosphere, which became League of Legends. Like so, like
Yeah.
where is there one out there? And if not, when are we making it? Me and you.
Oh, man. So there's actually a game that just is actually very great timing. There's a game on our platform called Baze, BAZE.io. Definitely recommend that people check it out. It is a multiplayer tower defense game.
Okay.
So you do have the ability, essentially, you are a player and you start building up your own base. So not only does it protect you against these monsters that come in, but also against other players that might want to, take over your space. So it's kind of a
Ooh.
PE as well as a PvP kind of built in.
Ooh.
And you have to go out and ensure that you're constantly collecting resources, whether it's rocks or trees or gold, in order to continue to build these towers that can defend you. So that's really fun. It was just released probably, gosh, a week or two ago. I recommend checking that out. uh, Another game, and this might be skating a little bit close to some other games out there. It's similar to Plants vs Zombies,
Oh,
but
great
it's
game.
actually called Plants vs Zombies Rome.
Okay.
uh, and so you actually are a plant and you walk around and obviously are shooting zombies and such, but you like play as the plant character and get to roam around and actually shoot and defend, the base that all of you as multiplayer share. So it is more of a teamwork style game. So those are two that come off the top of my head and have been like the last, gosh, 2 weeks or so been released. Very fun. Would definitely recommend people to check it out.
So, quick question on that. Like, so Plants vs. Zombies Rome, is that copyright infringement and what does that look like? And, if we don't mind touching on that just a bit. So,
Yeah, for sure. So we definitely are careful about copyright for them. They make it very clear that they're not trying to make money off of it or anything.
okay.
So just to be kind of clear, I am in talks with the creator, just making sure that, if we are using this name, which I'm not sure if he's going to stick with, or he just kind of put it out there just to, get some people excited. If he's going to eventually change it. But I know that inspiration came from Plants vs. Zombies, at
Cool.
least to start.
Very cool. Okay, cool. Interesting. Yeah, I literally have a lot of copyright talks as part of the Graphic Artists
No,
Guild.
we
So,
very much try. We very much tell our creators like, hey, you can't use copyright images and those things. So we
yeah,
are
yeah.
careful about it, and we have moderators that check for this type of stuff.
Fantastic. Okay, good to hear. All right, so today on the focus of our episode here, we're hoping, you know, as I've gotten to know Linda, the thing that's really powerful in her space and what she's doing is building communities, right? So, what's the importance of building a community as a creator, and how building a community can directly translate to engagement, right? So, what does that look like? And speak to that a little bit because I know you know these things. So,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think right now, whenever anyone wants to come up with an idea, whether it's a game, whether it's, art or even, a book or something, right? It's all about how do I find an audience? And, I think maybe in the past you could kind of just like release something and say, hey, it's out there, come find it and you're done. But now, because of just the way the world is today, there's a lot of like expected back and forth. I'll use gaming just because that's what I know best. But like,
Right.
when an indie game developer puts out a game, there's an expectation from your player base that, you're going to have conversations with that creator. It's not just going to be a one way, hey, I put this game out and the dev's never going to touch it again. Right.
Right.
There's an expectation of, if I'm a player, hey, this dev put out a game. I can go on social media. I can go on forums. I can go on Reddit. I can go on whatever and speak almost directly to this creator and tell them what I like, what I don't like, for good or for bad. And
Yeah.
then that creator, if they're a good creator, let's say, and really want to build that engagement, they're going to take that feedback and say, hey, how can I make my game better? What is it that players enjoy? And how can I improve upon this? Whether it's gameplay, whether it's art, whether it's the design, whatever it might be.
Wow.
So
It's
there's a
almost like
lot of,
open beta,
yeah, yeah. I mean, that pretty much is like, even with AAA games nowadays, right? We see that they put out a game and then they put out a patch, day one, day zero patch, day one patch, day five patch, right? So it's like games aren't ever released and just like forgotten about anymore. It really is like an ongoing process.
Yeah. And that's that DLC monetization method too, right? Like, hey, we dropped the game, everyone got involved. We had some more things that didn't make it to the chopping block for the release. Oh, well, that's going to be the foundation of the DLC.
Yeah.
I assume that's how that goes. I'm not,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of, just how things work nowadays. So there is a lot more sort of audience building that on the creator side is expected, versus before where it was like a nice to have. And so that's also good though for the creator, right? Because now the more you engage with your audience, the more they buy into your game. So instead of just saying, hey, I played this game once, it was fun, I'm out. If you get to talk to that creator a lot, if you get to see them on Twitch or whatever it might be, you feel more bought in. And so you actually become, if you do this right, your audience actually becomes your loudest marketing channel, because they'll go out and tell their friends and they'll tell their friends and they're going to talk about how great this game is because they had this great experience in having their voice heard or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So that idea of building an audience has become more important than ever. And it not only, I mean, helps with building the game and making it better, but also helps with having this audience that continuously comes back, continuously engages. And then, I don't know, if you want to do something like adding NFTs or adding revenue or whatever it might be, the audience, believes you. They aren't seeing this as like, hey, you're just here to get a paycheck. You put in time, you put in effort into this game. Now I want to give back and help
Totally.
you.
Yeah, so it's like before you even layer in NFTs and Web3 and like digital ownership economy and all that sort of stuff, if you're building a thing and you engage with your community and then your community engages back with you and gives you input, now they have buy-in, they have value. Like, hey, they took my idea. I've seen this happen before, and say, they actually listened to what I said and implemented these 4 things. And like, I've played games with people who are like, yeah, I actually did some beta tests and they took 5 of my ideas. It's like a flex, right? Like, they're just excited that like they said a thing and 1,000 other people might have said it too, but like they know they said this to you and clearly the community was heard and this thing was implemented. That like gives people buy-in. They're so much more excited about that space. And now like when you layer in a Web3 type of aspect and there's NFTs associated with, hey, you were a beta tester or you have this account here or you found these items, or, even like you could give people credit for their ideas. Like, these ideas were submitted and we made 50 Polygon NFTs for this particular idea, and all of you guys got distributed, and that'll have utility later on where you'll get a free skin or a little name over your head, right? Because we know human beings love status, and we know
Yeah.
that if you can give them special status in a game, even if it's just an extra little title or a little hat or a little WYSIWYG that somebody else can't get, they love that. It's more engagement, more buy-in. It just layers in deep, right? So I love that. I know you guys are on that same page. So like, yeah.
Yeah. Someone said really interesting this morning was just another kind of maybe like turn on NFTs. I hadn't really crystallized until he said it, but this idea of NFTs can almost be seen as nowadays like I mean, like almost an investment in a game, right? So if you used to be an early adopter of a game, you're kind of just like lost in the crowd. Hey, you're just another player. And then when it gets really big, like, hey, you're just one of those other players. But
Right.
nowadays, with just if you want to invest in, we'll call it investor time, even in a game of any sort, with Web3, you can own an NFT early and actually be seen as one of those early adopters, right? Whether it's that NFT or you've essentially given money to that creator early on to help them to build this incredible game that they want to build.
Yeah.
So almost like that in itself can almost be like an award or a status symbol because you helped so early on. And again, kind of helping to build that audience over time when, it does start to pay off and it starts to become more and more crowded, more demand, etc. You really start seeing that, maybe that NFT that you own now starts to have value.
Yeah. It's really an season, like you said, it galvanizes. It's proof they were there first, and it's the most amazing way to do crowdfunding. This is crowdfunding on steroids, right? This is like, hey, you have a contract here that's trustless, meaning like I don't have to authorize, like you own this thing. It can be bought and sold at your discretion. I mean, depending on the NFT, obviously you can program your NFTs to be however you want them to work, but that's kind of the standard. Yeah, and then as they invest all their time and energy that they might have done anyways because they love your thing, now there's a potential that they get a reward on that investment. That, oh, this thing blew up. I have proof that I was here, an early adopter, and now my early adopter thing is worth whatever. And you better believe the creators should be paying attention to that, because how do you reward that those early adopters, and make sure that and then you don't need marketing. That word of mouth marketing is crazy, right? Like, I love this stuff, it's worth this. Like Bored Apes, you never seen a Bored Apes commercial, right? Like, it's because the community is so hyped about the things they're doing with that intellectual property and collaboration and storytelling and movies and books and video, like you name it, games. It's crazy. So I'm all in that for sure. I love this shit.
Kind of like taking that. I think what's really interesting with NFT collections is a lot of them, I mean, obviously, things were in a bull run last year or even the year before, and then kind of have really slowed down since. But what's interesting is a lot of those collections sold out, right? And then now all of their collectors are now holding this incredible art. In some cases, incredible art, in some other cases, not so great. But now all of these NFT collections are thinking, like, what is the next step? I've now sold out this collection. My collectors want something. How do I engage with my audience more? And most of them have come to the conclusion that they need to have a game, because that's how you engage your audiences. That's how you keep them coming back every single day. And so that's actually one of the things that we discovered when we actually weren't even looking for it. A lot of NFT collections actually approached us to help them make games for them, because they're encountering this issue of, we have a ton of these collectors. They love us. We didn't even promise a game, but now that things are kind of slowing down, they want to do something with this art. So we need to essentially create value for them. And so even the ones that were never thinking about a game are now thinking about a game. Yeah. Because that really is, like, when you think about why would someone want to engage with, them as an artist or them as an NFT creator at all, right? It's, you have to give them something. And that generally tends to be, hey, something fun. I can talk with them directly. It's not like I'm on a Zoom call, we're just talking back and forth. Why would anyone want to talk to me? It becomes like, hey, no, there's something we can play together. You start to grow together with this community, start to like build memories essentially. And then that becomes a value. And then now all of a sudden their NFT collection now has value because that game was really fun. So we're seeing some of like the other way around, where, hey, we started with the art, now we're building a game, versus, hey, we started with a game, now we build NFTs. So we're seeing that as well. And those NFT collections are, honestly, they're all struggling to make games because it's really freaking hard to make.
You guys are removing the friction on that, right? That's really powerful, really powerful.
And not only is it like, so the way we describe it is, making a game that's fun is really, really hard. There's AAA games out there that had a ton of marketing behind it, had all the power of being a AAA game, and they still launched and failed. So how can, like, you can't say ahead of time, like, hey, I'm going to make a fun game, it's just going to go out and people are going to play it. Like that's good luck with that. If you figure out the formula for that, let me know. I'd love to use that and become really, really rich.
Yeah, us nerdy millennials with our very keen eye for what
Yeah,
sucks and what doesn't suck, and authenticity, and having played a bajillion video games by the time we're edging on 40, we're not playing a shitty game. Like we know 100 other good ones we could spend our time on. So
exactly. And so it really is this idea of like, hey, you can't just fake it and say, hey, I want to make a game. It's going to go out and instantly people are going to play it. Like, no, you have to think about the gameplay. You have to think about the mechanics. You have to think about how all of this is going to intertwine with each other. And so, again, I know I keep bringing back to Mario, but like that really is kind of how we come in where we say, hey, we try to make, first of all, the tool is really easy to use.
yeah,
So, and as well as the feedback loop. So, like, as soon as you publish a game, it's out there. All you need is a URL. So it's super easy to share. And
amazing.
you have in-game chat actually included. And we actually just released a couple improvements upon that chat, which make it easier for creators to talk with players within their games.
Okay.
Uh, with like things like announcements, things like DMs. We're adding more social features, so the ability to friend, follow, all of those are within the platform. If you're within a game, you actually shows up on the front page that you're building the game right now. So people can actually join you and say, hey, what are you building? And because our platform is real time, like you can actually see those changes as they occur. And you say, hey, I don't like this, or change this map, or hey, can I help you to build this game?
Ooh,
So yeah, so we've seen a lot of collaboration between people who are joining the game, who maybe want to become contributors and start helping to build the game, make that vision come to life. So we really do try to focus on how can we make the experience as good as possible for those creators. And then that way, when they build this game, they can, you know, I kind of like into a startup is you just got to put a product out and see how people use it. You can philosophize all day
yeah,
long
totally.
how good it be, but until you put it out there, no, you're not going to know.
And what
So
a beautiful thing for to make an MVP, a minimum viable product, like exactly like boom, let's drop it out. And we made it
yeah,
in 4 days. Oh, these fundamental ideas were trash. These ones were way more successful than we
yeah,
thought. Let's build on that. Boom. Versus like
yeah,
5 months later, like you launch a thing and it's trash, right? Like,
exactly. It's just a faster iteration process, and on top of that, it's like, hey, you can see, do people like this gameplay or not? Like, we like this, great. But it also shows like, the game development process used to be, I'm announcing I'm making a game. 3 years from now, here's a demo. And I've already forgotten what happened in those 3 years. Like, oh, you were building a game? I didn't even know it. So
yeah,
this you can show that progress over time. Like you said, like, hey, a week from now, we have the art in the game. We have this basic gameplay. Do you want to try it out? You can come try it out. Like, yes, understand it's gonna be broken, but like, hey, you can try it out and actually see that we're making this game. It's not just, a rug pull. So having that progression is also really important.
yeah, so cool. So let me ask you this. When I assume this is already in the works, but I assume there will be some level of like, hey, I've got these NFTs, or there's a collection that's just for this game, and you have to have one of these NFTs to play, even if they're free, but you have to mint one to start. Like, is that part of the plans for the platform? Because that would be super cool.
Yeah, so we've actually had a couple NFT collections approach us to help them make games. So we actually have already done that where they actually had their own collection and then they brought that collection onto our game. Now, just to, kind of be transparent, it's not like a one-to-one, right? A lot of those NFTs you see out there, they are not made for games. Like whether it's just like a profile of a head, like Bored Apes, like you can't
Oh,
actually
sure.
make a character out of that, right?
Right.
So we do have the creators, we do have those NFT collections. If they want to make games, say you probably, I mean, first of all, you want to think about how this game is designed, and then you want to decide how you're going to translate your NFT into this game. Whether, I mean, you could have profiles and just have it as like a talking game, maybe of just
Yeah.
talking to each other, but you probably want a character of some sort that's able to walk around. So what does that look like? Um, but all that is to say, yeah, we actually have worked with NFT collections to actually translate their characters into a game and then being able to take, hey, if my skin is this, what does that look like in the game?
Interesting.
So,
Right.
and going forward, that is something which we still are building out some of the technology to do this. But the idea being, hey, if you have an NFT collection and you want to bring it into a game, what does that look like? How do I connect my wallet so we can just automatically read what you have in the wallet, translate that into a character, bring it in? We have a lot of things that we're working on right now, and we're just kind of seeing what's just prioritizing, given that we are a small team.
Yeah. Oh my God. I can only imagine that the shiny squirrel things. Like, oh my god, we should do that thing, but it's got to be in 4 months because we have these other 8 things ahead of it. But I
Exactly.
would, yeah, that's just, there's so much fun and potential, and I just love projects like yours, but NFTs and all this whole ecosystem that, like, the way it's just building pathways for people to be more and more creative quickly, right? And that's the double-edged sword. Like, there's a lot of problems with AI, but on the flip side, the idea that you could take your PFP and train an AI to generate I have the bust of this ape. What's the rest of it look like? And just kind of come out with 5 things, and then you could pick that one and boom, and then it ports right into the video game. Like, that's not impossible technology right now, which is pretty cool. And I feel like I know all the people that could make that work, which is pretty interesting too to even think about. So maybe we'll Voltron something really cool eventually.
Yeah, we're definitely paying attention to these AI trends too, because obviously it can be very impactful towards gaming, whether it's AI driven art, like you said, is hey, I just want to have, or I want to quickly put out some characters, whether it's for the final project or just because I want something in between, or I'm just prototyping and I just need something out. So we've seen people actually using some of the art tools out there just to get something in their game and get things going. But then also we are, just keeping an eye out on how we can, or how different platforms are bringing AI into games, whether it's, building a game from scratch using AI, which is crazy. I've seen, some demos of people doing it, which is absolutely insane.
Yes.
But also just, I mean, on our side, what's interesting is, we do have AI built into our games as well. Not like generative AI, but more like, for example, yeah, just like let's call it simple AI, but it isn't quite so simple. So just to give you an idea of how we simplify things in general for coding, I guess. So for example, if you wanted to build a game where you have a farmer who's capturing chickens, you can have those chickens run towards you, which is AI, or run away from you, which is another thing of AI, right? So for us, it's literally a click of, do I want this chicken to be an enemy or do I want him to be friendly? And this game will build itself based on the choices you make. So that's
something
kind of,
I've been thinking about. Like, and you say that so, like, it's like a choose your own adventure book, but like unlimited options, right? Like a digital D&D. God, imagine who comes up with the best like AI D&D, and like how that could be monetized, and what that would look like, and not to replace. And I don't feel like that's ever going to replace like having these like awesome D&Ds. I'm just saying that, like, are awesome DMs. Sorry, I'm too many acronyms. But I think there's something powerful and something cool there. Like, there could be an official DM by Wizards of the Coast. They're like, hey, this is the one, and we have 4 flavors of DM or 20 flavors or whatever, and like, and if you want to use them, maybe buy that NFT and have one of those and incorporate it into your thing. God, the possibilities are endless. But that choose your own adventure mindset, I think, has anyone really done that yet? Is that what you were thinking? No, sorry.
So I mean, I'll put it this way: we know about some creators who are looking into this. It hasn't been implemented yet, but it is something that we've seen some creators looking into it.
Oh man, the possibilities! Like, this stuff excites me, right? Like, and it's, there's a lot of terrible, like, people like get upset about things on the other side, and there's a lot of things to get upset about. To be fair, all this innovative technology, like, all colliding at the same time, it's wild, right? Like, all of our laws don't even have the right like checks and balances to even regulate these types of things. Like, and our lawmakers are all so old especially in the States, they've been there for 50 years. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
barely get web one. Like we're on three. Like
yeah,
like they're still
exactly.
confused when they're talking to Zuckerberg about web two. And it's like, guys, like, how are you in charge of regulating this shit? Like, anyways,
And
I don't
yeah,
mean to get political or anything, but
no, but I mean, it definitely is something where, it's just, it is a little bit the Wild West. I mean, even for
it is.
Web3, for like, all these things, right? And that is part of the excitement, but at the same time, there is, of course, this element of like, what are the risks? But at least for us, we're, at least for now, we're on the train of what's the excitement? Like, because this, I mean, just the opportunities it presents really does just kind of almost blow my mind in terms of what's possible and what this
Yeah.
opens for. So, we're just keeping an eye on it, seeing what's happening, and obviously, seeing how these trends might impact us in the future. That's super important for us.
Okay, cool. Well, I have a couple little fun questions here that I'd like to ask. One or two. Well, one fun one practical one, and then just some suggestions. So, do that. Like, what's a best tool? So your website's fantastic for like iterating games. Conceptually building a game is a whole different animal, though. Is there a cool tool out there that you could recommend to people that like, hey, here's a checklist system that you can run through to kind of if you're thinking about building a game, like it's a decision tree of some sort, or
Yeah, that's a good question. A decision tree. I haven't seen anything quite like a decision tree. What I have seen is, I mean, obviously platforms like ours, we have like communities of creators who talk to each other. So it's sort of like learning from your community. That's really important as a game dev, and having a supportive community who's helping you to like, not just, with ideas of like, hey, is this idea good or bad? It's also playing the game and being kind of honest, like, hey, this sucks. You should
yeah.
change. So having a supportive community, sorry, a community that is not only supportive but also constructive in criticism, that's really important. There are other communities out there that I've seen. So itch.io is actually one of the big ones.
Sure.
They also a creator driven platform where there's a lot of people making games, hosting game jams and those types of things. Uh, so at least off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that's maybe a quote unquote checklist, but there are a lot of really good creator communities out there. Even Reddit has some great creator communities.
Wow.
They're willing to like take a look at your game and give you constructive criticism.
I love that. So just tapping into some of these already existing communities and showing up and like, being the person that's like, hey, I'm excited about this thing. Here's my idea. Like, help me make it better. Those communities are alive and well. And you're saying
Yeah.
that you can find them obviously on your platform, but on itch.io. And
Yep.
you said Reddit's got some good stuff. Any subthreads or subreddits that are
Oh man, I mean, I know indie game devs, something like that. That one's good. Obviously, gaming. Everyone posts on gaming.
yeah.
Uh, but game dev, our game dev, that's another one. If you
Okay.
work on a specific technology, like Unity has its own, Unreal Engine has its own, if Godot has its own. So, those might be good places to also check out. Just to say, hey, I built this game on, Godot. Hey, tell me if this is good or not.
And then you build your community kind of like as a baby off of this community, right? Like you get some people excited and then it grows, right? So I think that's the best play because building a community from scratch from nothing is nearly impossible, right? Like you need to go somewhere where people are and then be a part of that community to build a community. I feel like
Exactly. And that really is it, right? Once you've started gaining those players, you want to make sure you're constantly engaging with them and having them be your feedback as well as your marketing channel in order to get more players.
got you. So I asked you earlier about a little bit of some shout outs and stuff. I think you mentioned another place called the Alliance DAO. You want to talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit?
so Alliance DAO, they are an accelerator for Web3 companies. We actually went through them last year. Highly recommend them. We actually didn't know much about Web3 until we joined that accelerator program. And it was absolutely instrumental towards our understanding of just basic things like tokenization, tokenomics. How does the back end of this all work? How do market makers work? How do these different protocols work? So even just like the basic knowledge about Web3 and building a company around it, absolutely instrumental. But then on top of it, for us, because we focus on gaming, they actually had people, I'll actually shout out Will Robinson, who actually understand gaming really, really well. And so not only could he help us with that Web3 side of things, they also helped us on the gaming side of just building a game development platform. So highly
Really
recommend
cool.
now. If anyone's building a Web3 game, definitely check them out as an accelerator program that's worth participating in.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that, and shout out to Will Robinson for being the guy with the real good, good side scoop. I love that. Cool. That pretty much wraps us up here. I want to give a big thank you to Rise25, who connected us with Linda, and we've since been, chatting and interacted and doing cool things. And you can check them out at rise25.com. So once again, we've been talking to Linda Yuan, who is the co-founder of Madio, a no-code multiplayer game maker that empowers creators to make their own communities. If listeners want to get in touch with you directly, where should people go to follow up with you, Linda?
Yeah, definitely. So previously I was at Twitter, but I don't know how that's doing right now. I'll share both my Twitter and my Threads account. So on Twitter, it's L4YUAN. And on Threads, it's Simple Rushes. One word.
All right. Simple Rushes. And then we have L4YUAN. L4YUAN. All right.
Yep.
Well, sounds good, Linda. Thank you so much for being on the show. And until next time, friends, we'll have more fun and exciting information for you on the Pixel Retentive Podcast. Thanks.
Awesome.
We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.